I believe trust is an active participation, right? So if I'm moving away from trust, I can use my body's divine intelligence to put me in that consciousness. And I have warrior energy. So warrior energy tends to be really grounded. It tends to be really human. And I think to maintain it is really bringing not only my soul to that conversation and that table, but also my humanity.
Everybody, and welcome back to the Oracle on Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Leah Dunlap. Today we're here with Jennifer Urezzio. I love that. It sounds so delicious, your last name. I want to tell you guys a little bit about Jennifer because I'm so excited that she's here with us. Jennifer is a prominent figure in the field of personal development and spiritual growth. She's a master intuitive and founder of Soul Language. As a gifted intuitive healer and strategist, she's devoted her life to helping others discover their unique soul languages and embrace their true essence. We're going to talk a little bit about Jennifer's journey because I think that it's really important as women entrepreneurs and founders that we hear other people's stories and understand not only what they're up to, but how they got there. So thanks so much for being here, Jennifer. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey to developing and creating soul language?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. So I would like to say it was a straight line, but it was not. I went to school for photography and realized, hey, I like to eat. And so then I started in marketing and PR, and I spent 17 years doing that. I didn't know that I was using all my gifts and talents of intuition and innovation there. People would hand me a media list. I ran a department, and I'd be like, call that guy. And they'd come back, they're like, oh my God, he booked it. And I was like, yeah, of course, right? But I didn't know that. And I was kind of on this path of self-discovery. I was really angry all the time. I knew that there was something bigger inside of me, and I was like, okay, I'm not happy. And that led me to a bunch of stepping stones to intuitives and coaches. And I got to a point where I went back to my straight job, and I had answered the phone, and I switched it over to my best friend and my boss. And I hear her go, yeah, that's Jennifer. Oh, yeah, that's Jennifer. I had changed so much that people didn't recognize my voice.
Yeah.
Right. So it was huge. I came really into my knowing. And a coach of mine asked me, who was also a friend, asked me, I'm doing this event. Will you come and speak at this event? There'll be a bunch of speakers. There wasn't. There was me and her. And I was talking about essential oils and life purpose because I could look at someone and go, here's the oils you need. And I got off the platform and people were lined up to talk to me. They're like, can you tell me about my guides and teachers? I was like, uh-huh. Can you tell me about this? I'm like, uh-huh. And I did enough sessions at that event to pay for the event, pay for the hotel, pay for airfare, pay for food. And I was taking clients home. And
Wow.
at that same event, I sat down next to this person. She went, we're going to be friends. I was like, totally. And then I looked at this person across the way. I was like, I don't care if I ever see that person again. Like, what is that? And I kept asking that big question, like, what is that? Where are my people? Like, I know my gifts and talents now, but what do I do with it? What's my delivery system? And I was on a massage table covered or starting to be covered in red clay.
Ooh.
And I was like, okay, Divine, what is this? Like, what is that thing? And what I heard was, oh, that's soul language. And I said to this woman, get me a pen. She's like, what? I was like, get me a pen. And I just kept listening and asking questions. And 2 months later, I had this paradigm that puts tangibility to soul in the soul of a business. And I went back to that woman where we sat next to each other and I identified her soul languages. And we had a language in common. And so, of course, I got her. Like, she would tell a story and I was like, oh my God, let me tell you the story. And the details were different, but it was exactly the same. And the story I told to her, which is one of my soul languages, is called Teacher of Integrity. So I can feel, know, understand where people are at the consciousness of love. And if they want to, I give them the opportunity to get back into that, right? But I was at a fire circle with a bunch of women and they were having a conversation and I said something and they all turned to me and then they all turned back and they picked up the conversation exactly where they left off as if I hadn't spoken at all. And she had the same experience, but with different details. And I was like, I really understand what it's like to use your voice and not be seen or heard. And that was that teacher of integrity kind of misfiring because I was using my own unconsciously. And so that's kind of the circle. I mean, there's a lot of bumps in the road between
Right.
Warner's home, between, the moment and now, right? It's an evolutionary process, but that's kind of the meat of the story.
I love that. It's true. Like that. I love what you're saying because, of course, there are always bumps in the road, and I was just like, suddenly, just the oracle just gave me this image of a rock tumbler, right? Like it's that. Yeah, you're being polished, right, through those experiences too. But I also think it's interesting to hear from you that a couple of things got highlighted as you were talking. One is, you know, when we come to understand our gifts or we come to recognize them, they don't often, they're not just gonna, like, show up in a letter for you, like,
Right.
here's
There's no
you know,
golden ticket
it's
moment, everyone.
and it's
Yeah.
like sudden
Right.
it's a you oftentimes I hear, "Suddenly I knew," like, something finally kinda clicked, and then even when you said you went back to your regular job during one of the maybe, I'm assuming, kinda one of those bumpy moments, other people feel that too, like, "Oh, do I need to maybe I jumped too soon,
Right.
maybe I need extra support." And I think it's important to validate that
Yeah.
that sometimes that is the road. It's not necessarily, direct, rarely, I would say, and that as we move through that, if we're leaning back on, like what you said, you're leaning back on your talent and your real gift, then it's gonna keep leading you down the road where you're meant to go.
Yeah.
And so for you with the soul language piece, I also I completely understand the jumping off the table to go and write things down. I always say, like, I want a waterproof pad in my shower.
Totally.
And I'm always like, "Why? Why are you giving me this information, like, right now? I don't have anything to write this down with." So I love that idea, the image of you going like, "Wait, I I have to capture this now." Um, so you written a book, correct?
I've written 2. The first
Yeah.
one is about soul language, and it's 500 pages. So no, it's not on digital. And right, and it's really like the textbook of soul language. So it talks about what the 3 categories are. It gives you all of the core energies of soul. And I wrote it because I taught a class, uh, and that's how the book got written. And then my publisher was like, "I want to publish this book." I was like, "Okay." And then we spent a year editing it,
Yeah.
like a year, to make sure like all of them were kind of in the same format. And well, what does this mean, Jen? I don't understand that. And I'd be like, I don't understand it either, but that person that has that soul language does. And so it
Mhm.
stays, right? And because I muscle tested every single word in that book with divinity, it took a bit of time. And then my second book, which is I love, is a little book of prayers, which are
Uh-huh.
it's a short book. It's like 30 pages. And I kept writing prayers for clients, like
Mhm.
affirmative prayers. And I was on the beach with my friend Regina, and she's like, "When are you going to write that book of prayers?" And I went, "Oh, okay." Like I heard it, God. I get it. And I collected all the prayers that I just kept, the categories I kept writing over and over again. And I took the 20 best ones, and people use it as a deviation tool, right? And at the end of a class or end of a group thing, I'll be like, pick a number. And I'm like, oh my God, that's pretty good. Oh my God, right? It becomes that kind of support system for myself and my others.
I think it's interesting because I definitely have that same experience. I have written a few books myself, and one of them is very much like we do the same thing. We do that at the beginning of our call. We open up the page, read it, and I am no longer fascinated when somebody goes, "I needed that exact thing today." I'm
Yeah.
like, "Of course you did," which is why we open the page to that. And I think there's this magic in writing from that place. That people like I love that you said like, "Oh, well, yeah, it needs to be in there because it's supposed to be in there."
Yeah.
You don't have to know at the moment, you just have to trust.
Right.
So I think that trust is such a big factor in the work that you and I and others like us do. How do you maintain your humanity and your divinity together? What if you could tap into the law of attraction with precision and power on your terms? I'm Leah Dunlap, and in my audiobook, Power Up the Law of Attraction, I give you the no-fluff blueprint to create a life of purpose, prosperity, and peace. Ready to stop manifesting by accident and start creating with intention? Download Power Up the Law of Attraction now on Audible. Now, back to the show.
It's an excellent question. Well, first of all, I believe trust is an active participation, right? So if I'm moving away from trust, I can use my body's divine intelligence to put me in that consciousness. And I have warrior energy. So warrior energy tends to be really grounded. It tends to be really human. So even if I look at my guides and teachers, they're kind of all like, and I don't mean to offend anyone, they're kind of all warrior, like they're like put their feet up on the table. They're not like, they're like kind of hooligans in the best possible way, right? And I think to maintain it is really bringing not only my soul to that conversation and that table, but also my humanity. So one of the things we do when I teach clients is we do this system called the coning. And I'm like, okay, often we bring ego, sustainable ego, to the table, right? Because it's really important that your humanity gets on board with what your soul is saying, or you're not going to be able to move that engine anywhere. Right. And so it's really about, well, great. I'll say to a client, okay, great. You just told me the whole soul thing. Now, what does your human want? And they're like, well, I'm like, it's the vehicle. You're not going to kind of discount that. And I think so often people, the spiritual mumbo jumbo, people are trying to wrestle ego down and like, chain it and eradicate it. And I'm like, if you do, you're not going to get off your couch. You're going to be thinking you're big spiritual thoughts, right? So it's a dance.
Yes.
And I think it's also in that understanding that dance also helps you align your sacred masculine and your sacred feminine energy. So it supports your life purpose and your life purpose alone. So I think I answered the question.
Yeah, not only did you answer the question, you kind of just opened up this whole nother like little spin-off of that, which is I think it's so important. And I love that you mentioned this because I heard someone say, like, if your guides or the medium that you're working with, if there's any sarcasm or any kind of edge to what they're saying, that it's not a high vibration guide. What do you say to that, Jen?
I say you fire them. I mean, literally, I have fired guides and, but mine are not sarcastic in a negative way, right? They're direct.
Right.
And they're funny. And they
Yes.
can make me laugh at myself. And, I have one or two like, but, they're kind of like, they come in and they drop a bomb and they go out. But for me, my first and my last connection is always with my soul. Always.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Right? Because guides and teachers have an agenda. Most of them are a human soul. They're for your agenda, but they still have an agenda. And I have helped clients fire their guides and teachers. And I'm like, what are you listening to this crony for? You're listening it through too much ego. We need a guide or teacher that can get through your unsustainable ego crap.
Yes. And now the other piece that I was really interested in hearing you say a little bit more about the sustainable ego. What do you mean by that when you say that?
So there's the ego that wants to keep you really safe, right? And there's the ego that's like in that false sense of security, right?
Right.
And then there's the ego that wants you to move forward, the ego that wants you to get up off the couch because the soul says, hey, let's create this great thing. And the ego goes, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Let's go. That's sustainable. It's the ego that keeps you sheltered, feeling small is unsustainable. And because it's inside of us, there has to be a divinity part of every part of us. So to me, the sustainable ego is that ego that's in alignment with our soul versus the ego that's limiting, pattern oriented, the illusion of safety oriented. And as our consciousness grows, so does the structure around it, which is ego, right? So often we can outsmart ourselves in our own practices. And especially with spiritual leaders, master healers, like that's why you guys all need a coach and a guide. And to ask better questions.
Right.
So it's really about a lovely balance of going, okay, and I know what that feels like in my body, unsustainable ego versus sustainable ego, right? Some people call that flow.
Yeah.
Um, right? So that's unsustainable is, I'm taking things not literally, right? But I'm cranky, I'm agitated, that kid feeling, that teenager feeling, like that's
Mhm.
unsustainable. That's, you know, the illusion of safety and my soul in disagreement rather than in
In
collaboration.
alignment. In alignment and collaboration. I love that. And I think that piece, I just literally the other day was having this conversation with a client too, like this idea that is so perpetuated sometimes by people, even in our industry, of like ego is bad. Like it's just like as a flat statement. And I'm like, that cannot be possible. Here's
No,
my thought about this. And tell me what you think. I always say, like, if it's so bad, why do we have it?
exactly.
Why are we created with it? I
Right.
mean, like, to kind of shock people into, like, think about this, and I also think what you said, that kinda ties to the idea and the concept that not all guides or even divine messages are laden in sweetness, right? Sometimes they're bold, sometimes they are shocking even, but I
Hmm.
think that people stray away from those things and the ego piece because that feels less
Magical?
genteel and magic. Yeah, I was like, "What is that word I'm looking for?" It's like, but that's flowing. I'm like, "Flow, if you look at a river, like, it flows, there's power in that
Mhm.
flow." So to pretend that we can't, engage with, right, or be shared messages by a stronger voice, I think does hamper people in receiving the guidance that they need at a specific moment. Now, I'm not saying all the time, and I agree with what you say, like, there is that combination, but it just when I heard that, I thought I wanted to bring that into our conversation because I had a feeling you'd have a similar. Yeah,
Yeah, I tell people, like, listen, if you have a song with only high notes or only low notes, it's a sucky song, right? You need all of the combination. There, so often people in our fields are very this way or that way, right?
right.
And it's not. It's, and this is really hard for a warrior to say because we tend to be left, right, right, right. But it's not. It's kind of all gray. And so often, what people are trying to do or have been taught in spirituality is that there's peace in absolutes. Mm.
Mhm.
Instead of understanding that this is a dance, this is a conversation, this is an evolution, and to approach it with the more I know, the less I know.
Right. Exactly.
And with this air of, what kind of interesting thing, in the best possible way, am I going to be experiencing today?
Mhm.
And I think it's really important when people are kind of are studying or have teachers that they really determine what truly resonates with themselves, not what they're in resistance about. And I think sometimes people go, I think a lot of people have been taught, like, oh, when they're saying, hey, that doesn't resonate with me, oh, you're in resistance. You really
Right.
have to understand what is resistance in your body and what's not resonating. So to me, not resonating is how I feel about cauliflower. I don't like it. There's
Right.
no edge, there's no charge, right? Right? So it's hard to say sometimes if you resonate with something or not because there are all these beliefs and resistance. But your spiritual practices, your connection, your intuition is your own.
Mhm.
And you have to find out your own formula.
Ooh, I love that. Find your own formula. I think that is so, um, misunderstood. And deep actually, that's the word I wanna say. It's devalued,
Uh-huh.
that uniqueness of our experience and our expression, because
Yeah.
there is a part of us as maybe the very human part of us that wants to belong, right? There's that belongingness to us. So we want to belong to a thing and a group and be part of it, whatever it is. So much that I think you're right. People do tend to play in the field of like, why I must be having resistance if I don't belong and this doesn't make sense and it doesn't resonate with me. And I think it's so great, such a great reminder to all of you who are listening. Like, you're the person the universe wanted to have be here. You, just like you are. And so whatever you are, whatever you believe in, whatever you bring to the table is important and valuable too.
Yeah.
And I think that turning ourselves over, maybe that's part of it too, to a guide or to a, even a anyone, a coach, a therapist, anybody without connection to self is such a disservice to our
Yeah.
process.
And then that's how cults are born, right? Like, it's a conscious effort. And I tend to be consciously transparent. I don't have a poker face, right? So you kind of know what's going on my face. And I think so often, especially when people are in pain, when they're
Mm.
suffering, right? Um, they are willing to see the worst side of themselves. I had a mentor once, Frankie Timmers, who said, our pain is pretty boring. It's our connection that I want to hear about. It's the excitement. What
Mm.
does that feel like for you? That's exciting because we're all kind of experiencing pain the same way, just different kind of details. And so often, listen, you have to work on the shadows so more light can kindle, right? I'm not saying don't do that. But what I'm saying is let's really give ourselves our own definitions of what
Mm.
being connected is so you can get yourself back there. Because if it's not that, that's when you get to use a tool to reestablish your connection or reestablish the feeling of that connection because you're always connected.
Right. Yeah. Final, like, little truth nugget there. You're always connected, right? I had this great image one time for a client. I said, it's like you're standing at the door that you just walked to the next level at, and you've turned around and you're facing the door, and you're like, why isn't this working? I'm like,
Right.
turn around.
Yeah.
The oracle's saying, turn around. You're looking at the door you just came in. Turn around. Like, be centered in yourself and know what direction you're going. So I think there is that truth to that as well. And as you are creating what's next for you, I'm curious where you're taking your business, are you writing new books? What's up for you next?
So I'm supposed to be writing a mystery novel every year for the last 5 years. And I started and then I'm supposed to be working on the Way of the Warrior book as well, which I just forgot about and now I just remembered. So I need to write myself a big note because there's resistance there. But what I'm currently doing, as of a couple weeks ago, I wanted more fun in my business. So I'm creating a product that's blending business and Candyland. Because yeah, it's really fun. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm doing a lot of joint ventures this year. Creating classes with people, which I'm really excited about too, because there are people that I really love and I value. And it's interesting because usually in collaboration, I tend to overgive, like, oh, I'll do that. Oh, I do that. I'll do that. And this year, everyone's like, I can handle that. And I'm like, oh, okay, you can handle it. Good. Which is really unique. I said to one person, am I doing enough? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, but normally when I'm not doing it all, I feel like I'm not doing enough. So and collaboration is one of the soul languages of soul language. So it's giving me
Mm.
a whole new viewpoint on that. So I'm kind of really excited about those things. And then I'm always interested in I love to know how people think and feel. Like that's why I love to identify soul languages. I'm like, oh, here's why you do this, right? So it's like always a mystery game
Mm.
that I'm like, oh, I know the answer. So those are always exciting things in my business.
Wonderful. And as you look at all these things you have in front of you, what is like the one right now? It's interesting because you mentioned the resistance, and already kind of like had a little uh, Twitter about that. But I'm curious, as you looking at these things and you're like, oh yes, you have so many amazing things going on, which is great. Where do you see? I always like to try to pull people up just in general, just like this viewpoint of how does what you're working on, or which of those things that you're working on, do you feel makes the biggest impact in the world as a whole? Like, what's the big
I mean, the big
gift?
thing is soul language. It's and the
Yeah.
Way of the Warrior, but soul language. I mean, I hear time and time again, "Oh my god, you're in my head. Oh my god, can I accept this?" Like it allows people living, breathing evolution to talk to their soul, right? It
Mhm.
allows the tangibility so they can connect at a deeper level. I think that's always the biggest impact. And sometimes I kind of take it for granted, like, oh yeah, doesn't everyone do this? And there, as a practitioner, because I train practitioners, we work with the 107 core energies, not just ourselves. And there are languages or energies I never talk to, which they get mad, but not really. I mean, like, right? And I think there's some time that can be dedicated to spending more time with those energies that we don't see a lot of, that
Mhm.
we don't collect as practitioners, um, because those are the fabrics of the universe that can shift things in a whole new way, because they have a totally different viewpoint.
And speaking of viewpoints, this is a time in our call where I get to ask the magic question or allow you to ask the magic question, which is if you're looking at all these great things you're about to do and creating, what is one way or one question you have for the Oracle to help you guide you higher into that alignment?
Yeah, I thought a lot about this, and then I forgot about that, and then I thought a lot about it when we started talking. Um, I think the main question is, what am I not seeing that I should see, right? Like, I'm highly intuitive, highly innovative, and yet we all have our blind spots. And so, what am I missing? Because I know there's something missing. And how can I carve out more time for the way of the warrior? Because it should be done.
Well, it's interesting because when you said that, even earlier, she was all over it. She's like, it's all about the way of the warrior. Interestingly enough, too, like as you said that a minute ago, for me, when she brings information in, she tells me, but she also shows me. So like that book just came and sat here in the middle. So it's
Fun.
yeah, it's like I think you already know the answer. And it's fun for me when I talk to people who are also intuitive because it's like our guides are already having major conversations up here.
Right.
Like it's just
We're
dropping
all
into
just
the
rolling our
we're
eyes
just
like,
expressing outside to anybody who's watching us what's actually happening. One of the things was she was like, you said you keep stepping away from it like it's a hot potato, right? And I think the hot potato is um another level of expansion for you, not only on a soul level, but on a visibility level. Like
yeah.
this work becomes more mainstream accessible for you and for your work. So it feels like the tension in there is like, oh, if I turn that key, then in a way, all bets are off. Like this is the
Yeah.
thing.
I guess there's a part of me that mind's turning the key, you know, because my first one is like, when am I going to have to find the time to write? Like, I like my schedule. I don't want the universe to like shorten my schedule so I have time. Like, I'm willing to set aside the time. I just got the
Yeah.
like,
It
right? Like,
just
they're like, oh
happened
my
right
God.
there. I mean,
Like,
yeah. So why don't
come
you share with the
on.
audience who can't see us right now
Yeah.
what just happened for you as you were processing that?
So I was saying that, and then I like saw in my head a calendar where like they're like, you watch the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, you don't need to do that. Like, look, you do that, you don't need to do that. Look, you did like there was all of this space that was moving around of like all of the ways that I kind of could use that and
Right.
still let the human have the fun of watching because it's a low like how do you guys even think and I want to like sit down with all of you and go are you kidding you could like right so yeah so I
Yeah.
will
I love
commit
there it is. Okay, you guys
putting it
hear
on my
didn't hear it.
calendar.
It's coming. And it's so fun to me as I'm watching that. And I'm just going to explain to everybody who's been watching, or at least if you're listening, it's probably harder to experience this. So go watch the YouTube version of this because you'll want to see the expression because I saw it right away as soon as it happened, but you'll see it too. And what I was kind of giggling about was this concept when you said, I don't want to give up the thing. And here's what came through. So I want to share that for you and also anybody else who's watching this. Because the thing is, whenever I give anybody advice and people are listening, it's for someone else too. And here's what it was. It's this idea that if you desire a thing, there needs to be a willingness to let go of everything else. Doesn't mean it will happen. It just means you have to be willing to let everything
Right.
else change so you can have the thing you desire. And then sometimes one of those resistance points is this idea. And so she's like, there's your resistance point. Your resistance point is, I don't want to give up what I have to have that, but I do still want to have that. Right. And so I think that kind of edge of the resistance point for those of you who are following along often looks like that. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't want to do this.
Yeah,
Like,
I
okay,
just
well,
had
what?
a conversation with a client and she's like, "Well, I wanna." I'm like, "Well, do you really want it?" She goes, "Well, what do you
Yeah,
mean?" I was like, "Well, here's all the places where you're saying you want it and you're doing the exact opposite thing of what you want." She's like, "Oh, yeah." So it's on my calendar for tomorrow.
congratulations. I'm so glad we were able to have that conversation and share that information with you and play that out for people who are like, what is this like? What does it look like? What does it feel like? This is it. This is really what it's like to work with someone who can help you. Not because you can't help yourself. Let's be clear. Like, Jennifer is very talented. I'm very talented. We have these gifts. It does help, as you just said, to have someone else stand outside of you for a moment
Yeah.
and hold up that mirror. And then you get to be enough away from it, I think, to really see it. So thank you so much for giving me the
Yeah.
opportunity to share that with you. Tell everybody how they can find out more about who you are, what you're doing, and how you're doing it, and maybe how they can make sure they follow you so when the book comes out, they can buy it.
Sure. So it's soullanguage.us. That's the website. I am Soul Language or Jennifer Urezzio on most of the social platforms. The best way to have an experience is to go on Soul Language and look up Discovery Session, where we'll ID, meaning me, one of your soul languages. It's my gift. It's 30 minutes. It's so much fun for me. So let me have fun. That's the best way. And I answer my own email and I pick up my own phone, but please do not call me past normal business hours because you'll get my high, squeaky, sleepy voice.
There it is. All right. Well, definitely follow Jennifer. Go to soullanguage.us. And if you can't remember any of this and we're talking too fast, don't worry. We've got you linked. So just follow along the links. We'll get you where you need to go so you can stay in touch with Jennifer and, help me keep an eye on when that book comes out so we can all get it and find out what that information was that was nudging you to deliver to the world. Thank you so much for being here, Jennifer. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. I
I'm
appreciate
right
what you're doing
back.
in the world.
Thank you.
And to everyone who's watching, thank you for watching us. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for subscribing below so you can hear more about these great, amazing, wonderful women who are out there doing incredible things in the world, making a powerful impact like you as women founders and entrepreneurs. And again, keep coming back. We'll keep sharing their stories. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time. Again, I'm Leah Dunlap, and this is Oracle on Purpose podcast.